What's up, amigos? Less than 48 hours until early access for Diablo 4 starts, and man, I cannot wait. And today the embargo was lifted, so I don't know if you guys have seen the reviews yet, but it has built up more excitement for me, and I didn't even think that was possible. Today though, we are going to be going over my Shadowmancer necro build. As always, if you guys are interested in more Diablo 4 content, hit that like button and subscribe. So the Necromancer, Shadowmancer. And yes, here I go again, just adding Mancer to the end of the words. But just like our Surgemancer from last build, this defines what Diablo is. It's dark, it's gritty, and just downright badass. And I honestly think Mr. Torg would be proud. So starting off, let's go right into the Book of the Dead here. So the Book of the Dead, we're going to be sacrificing our Reapers for 15% increased shadow damage, our Cold Mages for 15% increased damage to vulnerable enemies, and our Golem, our Bone Golem, for 10% increased attack speed. So before we go over into the skills, we of course are going to go over the pros and cons. So the first con, or the first pro rather, is it's just a very fun build. There is lots of potential for endgame success. The AoE and single target seems great. We have lots of ramping damage. Shadow equals dot damage, just like poison, just like bleeds. This build is also very tanky and just gets tankier with Paragon. And of course, it wouldn't be complete if I didn't tell you that it is solo and group viable. In a group atmosphere, we are applying lots of crowd control, we are applying vulnerability, and just our clear speed is great. So there's only 3 cons that I could think of with this build. 1, it is viable for leveling, however, you definitely have better options. For 2, it is definitely rotation heavy. You definitely have to ramp up your damage on single targets like bosses, so it's not going to be like a one-shot build. Again, it is a dot build. And for 3, it would not be complete if our con for mobility did not make the list. It's truly like we're playing D1, maybe even D2 sometimes. It's honestly, again, become a meme. So let's jump into our abilities. So for our basic ability, we use Reap. We sweep an ethereal scythe in front of us, increasing damage reduction by 15% for 2 seconds. Enhanced Reap gives us 30% attack speed if an enemy dies within 2 seconds who have been hit by Reap. Acolyte's Reap forms a corpse under the first enemy hit. This can only occur every 5 seconds. For our first core ability, this is our main source of damage on the build, it's Sever. So we send a specter that charges forward and attacks with its scythe, then returns back to us attacking again. With Enhanced Sever, it also damages enemies along its path for 25% of its initial damage. Paranormal Sever, every 4th cast of Sever makes enemies vulnerable for 2 seconds. For core ability number 2, yes, I said that right, core ability number 2, we are going to be running Blight. Blight unleashes a concentrated blight that deals 30% damage and leaves behind a defiled area, dealing shadow damage over time. Enhanced, Blight slows enemies by 25%. And Supernatural allows enemies to take 15% increased damage if they are within the Blight puddle. So moving on to Blood Mist. Blood Mist is our defensive skill of choice, but it also acts as a great utility option for the build. Blood Mist allows us to break down into a blood pool for 3 seconds with immunity and healing for 0.5% each enemy hit for that duration. Enhanced Blood Mist allows a spell that overpowers to reduce the cooldown of Blood Mist by 2 seconds. This really doesn't apply to this build. The big thing that we're aiming for here is the Ghastly Blood Mist. This leaves behind a corpse every second for the duration of Blood Mist. So, three corpses, 3 seconds. Our next big spender is Corpse Explosion. Now, Corpse Explosion is another huge damage skill for us. We detonate corpses and we're usually the life of the party. Normally that's the case, but with this it's a little different. So, with Enhanced Corpse Explosion, we know that it increases the radius by 15%. But Blighted Corpse Explosion changes the skill entirely. Instead of corpses exploding, this becomes a darkness skill, and instead of exploding, becomes a Blight Puddle, dealing a massive amount of shadow damage over 6 seconds, and because of the enhanced version, it's also 15% bigger than it normally would be. Which I guess is actually kind of hard to say that because this is a requirement to even get to here, so yeah, it's kind of weird. Now we're going to go down to the corruption side. We are running Decrepify. This is our curse of choice. Now, Decrepify, once we curse the target area, we inflict Decrepify, slowing enemies by 40%, and they deal 20% less damage for 10 seconds. Enhance gives us a lucky hit chance. Enemies hit while afflicted with Decrepify have a 10% chance to be stunned for 2 seconds. We then get Horrid Decrepify. Horrid Decrepify is pretty neat. It's not a lucky hit chance. It states when you or your minions hit an enemy afflicted with Decrepify below 10% life, they are instantly killed. This is a flat execute for anybody who is afflicted with Decrepify and are under 10% life. When we use this paired with a dot, it's just nice to be able to run, dot, and just move on. So as you can see, we actually do not run an ultimate. It's not even needed for the build. I promise it's weird, but we don't need it. We are, however, running a key passive. That would be more weird if we don't. For this key passive, we run Shadow Blight. Shadow Blight infects enemies with Shadow Blight for 2 seconds. We deal 10% bonus damage to enemies who are afflicted with Shadow Blight. And every 10th time an enemy receives shadow damage while they are afflicted with Shadow Blight, they take an additional 20% damage. That is a lot to take in, but just know you just do more shadow damage. Now let's start off with our passives. So, we take 1 point on Living Energy. This is just a prereq and increases max essence by 3. We take Imperfectly Balanced. Core skills cost 9% more essence, but deal 15% more damage. This takes place for Blight and Sever. We take 3 points in the Hued Flesh. We have a 12% lucky hit chance, or we have a lucky hit effect, 12% chance to create a corpse at the target's location. This chance is doubled against bosses. We take 1 point in the Grim Harvest. Consuming a corpse generates 3 essence. 2 points in the Fueled by Death. We deal 6% increased damage for 6 seconds after consuming a corpse. When we consume a corpse, it's usually from Corpse Explosion. We take 3 points in Death's Embrace. Close enemies take 6% more damage from you and deal 9% less damage to you. 3 points in the Amplify Damage. We deal 9% increased damage to cursed enemies, in this case anything that is cursed with Decrepify. Down here we take 2 points in the Necrotic Carapace. When a corpse is formed from your skills or your minions, fortify for 4% of your base life. This is going to be very, very useful. We will constantly get this fortification and it'll ramp up pretty fast. 1 point in the Reaper's Pursuit. Damaging enemies with darkness skills increases our movement speed by 5% for 3 seconds. We move into Crippling Darkness, which is another lucky hit modifier. Darkness skills have a 15% chance to stun for 1 second. 3 points into Terror. Darkness skills deal 9% bonus damage to enemies who are slowed and 9% bonus damage to enemies who are stunned or immobilized. These bonuses stack and apply shadow damage dealt by your minions. The last part doesn't really apply to this build because we run no minions. However, the bonuses do stack, and we are slowing and stunning throughout the build. We take 2 points in the Gloom. When you damage enemies with darkness skills, they take 4% increased shadow damage from you and your minions for 2 seconds, stacking up to 3 times, which means 12% increased shadow damage. Here is a big damage layer or a defense layer for us. We increase damage reduction by 18%, reduced by 2% for each active minion, but that doesn't matter because we don't have any minions. And we run 3 points in the Memento Mori. Sacrifice in both skeletal warriors and mages increases their sacrifice bonuses by 60%. So that's it for the Shadowmancer build. Again, I think this build will be extremely fun, especially in group play. And I think it's different and just, again, badass. So if you made it this far, as always, thank you for watching. Drop a like and follow if you haven't already. And yeah, until next time, amigos, take care.